Artist Brendon Palmer-Angell, a native of Plattsburgh, New York, currently lives in a city that's felt great losses because of COVID-19, New Orleans, Louisiana. Many North Country residents know Palmer-Angell's name after he created the mural of another Plattsburgh native, Hollywood actress Jean Arthur, in 2019. The artist's current work examines the virus situation in a very personal way. Brendon Palmer-Angell joins us now from New Orleans. Hello, Brendon.
Hello, Paul.
Brendon, since you moved to New Orleans, how many large murals have you completed?
I have completed 6 murals so far.
And how has the COVID-19 crisis affected your mural commissions?
Well, I had 4 murals planned for this spring and summer, and all of them have been canceled or pushed back.
Well, hopefully those will be rescheduled sometime. Many people in our audience have followed your art progression for years, and you often put your feelings or current events right onto the canvas. I suspected the coronavirus situation was no different. How has it affected your artwork?
Well, when the pandemic really hit down here, I realized early on that it was going to become more about numbers very quickly than about individuals. So in that first week, I started a series of portraits of people that we were losing in New Orleans. I made this graphite and charcoal portrait of Eugene Jefferson. He was one of the first people to pass of coronavirus in New Orleans. His friends remembered him as a very sweet and generous man who was always giving gifts and food to his friends, who actually included the mayor here in New Orleans. The mayor sent me an email saying how much he appreciated seeing his face after I released the portrait. So the portraits for me really have to do with humanizing those individuals.
So you're honoring people who have passed on from the coronavirus situation. Any idea how many portraits you're going to be creating?
As of now, I'm planning on doing memorial portraits of the first 9 people who passed in New Orleans, and we'll see how it progresses from there. And as of now, all of those portraits have been supported financially by the amazing contributions of people who wanted to make sure that that happened and who are helping me to pay my bills during this time as well.
That's very important. How do your portraits relate to the culture of New Orleans?
Well, in New Orleans, a very important part of celebrating death is being able to come together. And I know it's that way everywhere in the world, but there's something called a second line funeral or jazz funeral down here in New Orleans where people are literally playing brass instruments, singing, and celebrating people's lives in the street. And with the pandemic, none of that is being allowed, which has been a really big hit to morale, you can imagine, with people dying already. The family of Teresa Elwha actually ended up using this portrait for her memorial service, which I was really blown away by. It just really moved me to hear her brother say how much it had helped to bring closure to the family. She was the owner of the Sportsman's Club bar down here in New Orleans. One of the most treasured culture bearers that we lost here in New Orleans was Alice Marsalis, who is a legendary jazz pianist, an educator, and also the father of a number of well-known jazz musicians, including Branford and Wynton Marsalis. So these portraits are important, I think, for memorializing and celebrating these individuals, but also humanizing the pandemic.
And they do. What's the destination for these portraits?
My intention is that the families of the deceased own the portraits in the end, ultimately. I also recognize that as we move out of the pandemic, there's a good likelihood that they may find a place in part of a temporary memorial or art shows that center around coping with the effects of this time.
This is such a historic time. How do you personally feel as an artist with a creative outlet at a time of such fear and sorrow right now?
It's a really tricky emotional balance. In a way, my work has become all about the pandemic, and that can be a weighty thing. It's beautiful to sit with these portraits, but it's also challenging to make sure that a balance is struck for myself personally.
You're also known for public projects such as the Jean Arthur mural in Plattsburgh. Are you working on a public project currently?
Yeah, I'm working on a project for the rooftop of the Central Library in New Orleans. It started out as sort of a distress signal, a giant sign about the need for medical equipment down here in New Orleans. Since we were working on it, it's evolved as the needs have evolved as well down here. It's shifted to become more of a video piece surrounding this really powerful poem that a local poet has written about the city and the impacts of the pandemic.
For those who have healed, and for the ones whose bodies didn't survive, for those fighting every second just to keep breathing, for the tribes at home still sowing, beating, and believing, you will once again be able to stretch your feathers.
And it sounds like you're working with other artists on this project?
Yes, I'm working with 3 other artists. So when we go out to work together, we're taking every precaution, maintaining social distancing, wearing masks, wearing long sleeves, but all the clothes that we wear are specifically for going out. And when we're wrapped for the day, we sanitize everything that we've been handling. And when I get home, I take everything off, put it straight in the hamper. It's outdoor clothes only.
Well, Brendon, thank you so much for your art and your insight.
Thank you, Paul. I really appreciate being on here, and please stay safe and be well.
I'm wishing you a safe summer, Brendon. To see the poetry video and the portraits by Brendon Palmer-Angell, head to mountainlake.org. And you may learn more about the work of this artist at brendonart.com.
Spotlight is supported by the Glenn and Carol Pearsall Adirondack Foundation, dedicated to improving the quality of life for year-round residents of the Adirondack Park.